Hello everyone, let's start. Salam, Namaste, Adab, and welcome to today's event. Today, unfortunately, I have to do this introductory remark. It's a tragedy that after even second replacement, somehow their very close relatives either got sick and one actually passed away last night. So even Professor Farhad Nasreen, who was supposed to give the introductory remark, have to rush to Lucknow to take care about his brother's wife. So I was not prepared. And so last minute, I have to give some introductory remarks. Welcome all. Today we are going to hear Professor Nivedita Menon on Hindutva's war on the Bombay film industry, what is at stake. Professor Nivedita Menon is a very well-known feminist. She teaches at Center of Comparative Politics and Political Theory at Jawahar Nehru University. She has written many papers, books, and well-known face, especially on the Indian feminism, as well as on maybe on Kashmir, on uniform civil code, and on all the democratic ethos of India. So welcome, Professor Nivedita Menon. I am not going to go in detail for like a introductory remark person was supposed to give for a few minutes, but I think this much introduction is good enough. We will rather hear you more, listen to you more, what you have to say. So Professor Nivedita Menon, please. Sarah, take it off.
Thank you so much for inviting me to speak, and good evening to friends who are joining from India. I can see some familiar faces and names, people I haven't actually met physically in Delhi for some time. Subhash Gatare, pleasure to see you. One of our indomitable fighters. And Apurvanand, thank you for being here at this event. Thank you to all of you for inviting me. It's a pleasure to be here. I'll go straight into my presentation, which is essentially, I think we're all aware, and in the chat that you were having, the informal chat before the event began, it's very clear that many of us, it's very evident now what is happening. So let me start with a particular incident, and I'll work backwards from there. And this particular incident was in November 2022. You would be all familiar with some of the things that I'm saying, but I'm hoping that I would be able to offer you kind of analysis as well. So at the International Film Festival of India in November 22, the jury chair, Israeli filmmaker Nadav Lapid, concluded the festival with an attack on a film called The Kashmir Files, which he called vulgar propaganda. And he said it should not have been screened at the festival for the sake of cinema. So I quote him, all of us were disturbed and shocked by the 15th film, The Kashmir Files, that felt like a propaganda, vulgar movie, inappropriate for an artistic competitive section of such a prestigious film festival. I feel totally comfortable openly sharing these feelings here with you on stage. In the spirit of this festival, we can surely also accept a critical discussion, which is essential for art and life. This is what he said. At this festival, Israeli actors from the serial Fauda were invited as special guests. The Israeli ambassador had also been invited as a guest of honor. Immediately after Lapid's speech, the ambassador he tweeted actually an open letter attacking Lapid for his abuse of warm Indian hospitality and the honor that the festival had shown to Israel. So this is an unprecedented situation that the ambassador is actually speaking up against a fellow citizen of Israel. Now, this film was released in March 22, and it's evidently not just any film. If a representative of the Israeli state steps up to defend it and to attack an Israeli who criticized it. Uh, as it happens, obviously, one then started finding out more about Lapid, and it turns out that he is critical of the Zionist Israeli state and of the occupation of Palestine. And he has said that, I quote him in an interview about one of his films, he said, the Israeli collective soul is a sick soul, unquote. So Lapid is clearly someone who is not someone easy for the Israeli state to digest in a sense. And so it's not, so it's sort of, there's a double reason why he was publicly attacked. And this immediate intervention by the ambassador regarding a comment on a film by a filmmaker, which the ambassador said had, I quote him, damaged ties with India, establishes conclusively that the film is Indian state propaganda, which Israel is committed to defend in the current era of the Hindutva Zionist alliance. How otherwise would India-Israel relations be damaged by criticizing a film made by a private individual? But of course, the Kashmir Files is not a simple film made by a simple individual. It had already been hailed by the Indian Prime Minister and the Home Minister. The BJP organized multiple screenings all over the country. Educational institutions and government departments organized screenings for all employees and faculty students. And at some of these, attendance was declared to be mandatory. Uh, it was made tax-free. The film was made tax-free in many states. And at many screenings, there was mobilization by activists of Hindutva to shout inflammatory slogans during the screening. I will say very quickly, I'm sure this audience knows how I'm using the term Hindutva. I'm using it in the sense in which Savarkar used it. It's a political project. Hindutva is a political project. It is not about Hinduism. So when I say Hindutva, I'm referring to the political ideology of Hindu majoritarianism and Hindu supremacism in India. So you would have groups of Hindutva activists who gathered to shout inflammatory slogans during the screening, after the screening, and it was very clearly mobilized. Now, the ambassador's letter added this following phrase, which was quite revealing. I quote the letter: "You go back to Israel." So the ambassador is addressing Lapid. "You go back to Israel thinking you're bold and made a statement," he wrote. "We, the representatives of Israel, would stay here. You should see the DM boxes following your bravery and, in quotation marks, and what implications it may have on the team under my responsibility," unquote. In other words, he's saying that for him to continue staying here, he cannot risk being seen to be participating in the criticism of a film. Let me remind you, a film made by a private individual, which Lapid had called propaganda. And everything that the ambassador wrote defending the film proves that it is, in fact, something that the Indian state defends. Now, the Kashmir Files is based on a historical incident of the 1990s, the murder of Kashmiri Hindus by Kashmiri separatists and the subsequent exodus of Hindus from Kashmir. This is an established historical incident. But around this, the film has woven a fictional account, which is a normal thing for many feature films do this. You pick a historical incident and make a story around it. A disclaimer at the beginning says, this, if you see the film, this film does not claim accurateness or factuality of historic events. It says this. But as you can see, the response is as if this is a series of facts which is being denied, but it's not a documentary film. It's a feature film, and the filmmakers say this film does not claim accurateness or factuality of historic events, just, I think, to escape any kind of legal action. Because the rest of the time in their public speeches and so on, they continuously talk about it as if it's a documentary. Now, the story involves a university. The story of the Kashmir Files involves a university far away from Kashmir, a professor who leads students astray by feeding them jihadi propaganda about Kashmir. Muslims are bloodthirsty, evil, and demonic, reducing the complex Kashmir issue to a Hindu-Muslim one with Hindus as victims. While the film claims the cover of fictionality, the university and the evil anti-national professor were widely trolled in social media and named as real, linking these to an actual university and an actual professor. This attack by social media trolls was vicious, widespread, and amplified by mainstream media, which regularly carries news stories supposedly based on social media happenings. So this is another indication of what has happened to the media, I think worldwide, but particularly in India, that a lot of news stories simply are headlines which say so and so viciously trolled. So they amplify uh, social media happenings through news stories in the mainstream media. Now, here's an interesting side story that this film, there was a preview of the film in Jammu. And after the preview, to which a selected audience had been invited, and after the preview, the widow of a soldier portrayed in the film went to court and got a court injunction removing that portion. Uh, and because she claimed, her and her counsel claimed, that it quote unquote demeaned and belittled her husband, as well as the whole fraternity of soldiers in general. And the court agreed with this. So the court injunction, she got the court injunction removing that portion because the court agreed that it demeaned and belittled the sanctity of the husband of the plaintiff, but also the whole fraternity of soldiers in general. Some serious flaws were there. It was not based on true facts. This is what the court said. So this is interesting. We don't know what this portion was, what it did, and because it was removed. A nationalist film, a film that claims to be ultra-nationalist, apparently demeaned the sanctity of soldiers. It's interesting. This should have been followed up, but of course the news was buried under all the rest of the coverage. But perhaps what was said about this particular portion could be said of the film as a whole, that apart from the actual event at its core, the fictionalization overtakes history, and everything is grist to the mill of the project of demonizing both Muslims and quote unquote urban Nakshals, a term coined by the director of this film earlier to refer to those who oppose the violent capitalist agenda of Hindu Rashtra. And hence, the university at the center of the narrative exemplifies what the RSS calls the jihadi urban Nakshal nexus. But this was merely, I would say, the attack on Shah Rukh Khan and Pathan and that particular song, which you're all familiar with. I won't go into it. That is the latest episode, but this was the last dramatic episode before the attack on Pathan. But these are merely episodes in a longer running soap opera, which is the attack on the Bombay film industry, which really began in 2020 explicitly. And you'll notice I say Bombay film industry and I don't say Bollywood because this term is media creation and it may have come from the US. You know what it implies, that everything is a mere some form of Hollywood. And I don't think actors, and I don't think the Bombay film industry likes the term either, but it's a media term. So I'm not using it. So there's, so I'm, the Kashmir Files is merely one more incident in a longer running soap opera, the attack on the Bombay film industry, which really began in 2020. And you can see the same combination of social media and amplification by mainstream media in that in that particular scenario. So what happened in June 2020, which is when actually I began to notice what was going on, a young, successful Hindi film actor died in tragic circumstances. What followed was a sensational real-life movie scripted in the headquarters of Hindu Rashtra as part of the larger campaign to control the cultural arena. So because the Bombay film industry is part of the larger cultural arena, and we have to see the attack on it in that light. So this actor, who was called Sushant Singh Rajput, was found hanging in his bedroom in a Mumbai flat. And it was initially declared as a suicide by the Mumbai police. But within days, hashtag justice for SSR, Sushant Singh Rajput, just hashtag justice for SSR started trending. And suddenly thousands of devoted and inconsolable fans had sprung up all over social media, all attacking Bollywood, as they call it, for its this term is important for its nepotism, which had deprived a talented actor of work, driving him to suicide. So this was the narrative. It began. It was huge on social media. That Bollywood and its nepotism, we'll come back to nepotism, had deprived this talented actor of work, driving him to suicide. So boycott Bollywood was a key theme in this frenzied outpouring of apparent grief. From here, it escalated to claims that Rajput had been murdered. So from suicide, it suddenly moves up to claims that Rajput had been murdered and that a drug cartel linked to Bollywood stars was involved in the crime. Soon, these claims were all that one could see on social media and on some Hindi, Marathi, and English television channels, especially channels like Republic and Times Now. But even more interestingly, police action followed this identical script, arresting or questioning a number of people, including top actors, on suspicion of being part of this supposed drug network which had driven Sushant Singh Rajput to suicide. A key figure in this campaign, with a relentless barrage of tweets about Rajput's death, is actor Kangana Ranaut, who entered the industry as an outsider and now has a creditable body of work, including the prestigious National and Filmfare Awards under her belt. It was Ranaut who, in 2017, in a talk show hosted by quintessential insider film producer Karan Johar, who is from an industry family, in that show, she challenged him directly about nepotism. The word was first used in the context of the Bombay film industry by her here. And he was evidently shocked and embarrassed. She charged him with nepotism, including in his own productions. And after that explosive interview, the term nepotism achieved iconic status and pops up in almost any discussion on the Bombay film industry. Now, in this talk, I'm going to focus on only some of the aspects because obviously we can talk about Bollywood forever, but I'll just pull out some of the aspects that are interesting for us. So I'm only going to focus on how Rajput's death was mobilized as part of a larger Hindutva campaign to purge the Bombay film industry or to tame it. And the reason why the Bombay film industry needed to be tamed is, of course, because of its huge influence, but it is dominated by Muslims, not just as actors, but it's one of the arenas where there is a strong Muslim presence in every sector of it. The Bombay film industry has a strong tendency towards cultural syncretism. It's not necessary. I mean, we could discuss all sorts of problematic films which have been crypto Hindutva and so on, but by and large, it has tended towards cultural syncretism. But most importantly, the Bombay film industry had been speaking up strongly against the politics of Hindu Rashtra since 2014. So, and of course, it may as well be noted that the industry is very wealthy and the ruling party has not shown any aversion whatsoever towards controlling sources of wealth generation for itself. In order to, I'll focus on two elements in today's presentation in order to understand how Rajput's death was made to perform a role in Hindutva's ongoing push to control the cultural domain. So we're going to set aside some actually very interesting strands. One is the role played by Kangana Ranaut, which we would need to go into in some detail, but I won't at this point. There is a strong familial angle to the suicide of Sushant Singh Rajput, which was basically a feud between his father and Sushant Singh Rajput's partner, a young Bengali woman, an actor herself. And she faced violent misogynist attacks on social media and was also arrested for a while. So we're setting aside the familial angle. We will also set aside the BJP Shiv Sena feud, which plays an important role. Shiv Sena is the government in power in Maharashtra. But and there's an on again. I mean, they're both Hindutva parties. So although they're both Hindutva parties, the Shiv Sena has been content to act as junior partner to BJP since the late 1970s in pursuit of a more pan-Indian role. There are clear conflicts between Shiv Sena's regional Marathi-speaking and Maratha Kunbi Koli support base and the BJP's increasingly evident RSS-driven North Indian Brahminical values. For instance, Shiv Sena has for some time now publicly opposed vegetarianism and demanded reservations for Kolis of the fisher community and shepherd community, along with Marathas. So, because Bombay is in Maharashtra, Maharashtra is governed by Shiv Sena, and because there's this kind of feud between Shiv Sena and BJP, there are a series of other events that happen. But we can set aside these three because what I'm interested in discussing here today is the way in which the suicide of a young actor was weaponized. It was like this campaign was ready in the making, waiting for an opportunity to be launched, and this was the moment that the campaign was launched, which is the suicide of Sushant Singh Rajput. So the two elements. The first element is the Justice for SSR groups, the grieving and angry fans. Supposedly, they're all fans. Now, Sushant Singh Rajput entered Hindi films after a successful television career, and in 7 years, he headlined 9 films that were both critically acclaimed and made their mark at the box office. So he was an outsider to the industry. So he's hardly the best example to illustrate the idea that he was an outsider marginalized by nepotism, because in fact he was an outsider and he did very well. He was on the rise, and he had made several films in 9 films in 7 years, and he was acclaimed. He was making his mark. So it's interesting. He's actually not at all a good example of an outsider who was sidelined and didn't make it and so on. But the point I'm making is that this campaign was ready and waiting to happen. So they used the Sushant Singh Rajput suicide. And overnight, it seemed there were hundreds of thousands of admirers who were not only devastated by his death, but in their multitudes targeted the same individuals and nepotistic systems as responsible for his deaths. The usual, the same tweets, the same copy paste. There were claims that he was dropped from several projects to accommodate insiders. But in fact, an interview with Rajput himself shows that at least several of these projects he dropped out from himself because of his prior commitments, and he was unable to keep to schedule. There were also clear indications that he was not well mentally. He was in therapy. But these kinds of when these kinds of facts emerged, they were swallowed up by an avalanche of denials that he was ill, both from his family and, of course, from the Justice for SSR troll army. Now, among the key targets of this trolling was Karan Johar, who is known to be close to Shah Rukh Khan, who has starred in several of his productions. Karan Johar has also worked with Pakistani actors in his productions. Now, in 2016, he had come under tremendous pressure from the Maharashtra Navnirman Sena, also a Hindutva organization, which was formed in 2005 after a split in the Shiv Sena. And he came under pressure after the attack in Uri, supposedly by Pakistani terrorists. And MNS threatened Pakistani actors in India who left the country. And the Indian Motion Picture Producers Association passed a motion to ban artists from Pakistan from working in India until Indo-Pak relations were normalized. And Johar has never really lived down this image. So Johar was one of the targets. And when I say target, I mean, these are not physical attacks, but these are really vicious and widespread and all over the social media. Another target is director Mahesh Bhatt and his daughter Alia, who's a top-ranking actor. Bhatt's mother was Muslim, and he is among those who have spoken out against this regime and the politics of Hindutva. Big names from film world families like Johar, Alia Bhatt, Kareena Kapoor, and Sonam Kapoor were trolled so viciously that they restricted comments on their social media for some time. And Sonam Kapoor, daughter of Anil Kapoor, wrote, I understand that they are paid bots and people who are pushing a conservative right-wing agenda. But right now is the time to speak about the lives lost at the borders and the lives affected by the lockdown. I'm turning off my comments, which was a strikingly mature comment to make. Now, the BJP's IT cell is infamous for producing targeted and systematic trolling by paid employees and bots. There's a lot of work on this, it's well established. And Justice for SSR has all the hallmarks of an IT cell campaign. Journalist Nidhi Suresh followed up with some of the groups involved in this hashtag and met 3 men. From her story, these men seem not so much bereaved fans of SSR as people with other motivations. So one asks her if she's anti-nationalist before meeting her, claiming to be nationalist himself. Now, what is interesting, of course, is that there's absolutely nothing to do with nationalism. Sushant Singh Rajput committed suicide. Even if he was murdered by a drug cartel, what does it have to do with nationalism? So it's very evident that the campaign is being run from somewhere else and with other motivations. So Nidhi Suresh had to say whether she was anti-nationalist before he would meet her. This is 3 men she interviewed. So one of them did this. He then later questioned her about her stand on the Citizenship Amendment Act, and he expressed his support for the BJP. Another who in a YouTube video claimed to have met Rajput denied this to the journalist. And interestingly, all his videos, which claimed to expose the dirty secrets of Bollywood, unquote, and which spewed abuse towards Sushant Singh Rajput's partner. So Suresh had linked to these YouTube videos in her article, but they're now removed. And his channel had 2 lakh subscribers. This person told Suresh that he received information about the case from many quarters. The third man she interviewed from one of the, so these are all men who are involved in this Justice for Sushant Singh Rajput campaign. The third was a member of the Karni Sena, an organization that claims to represent Rajputs, the caste to which Sushant Singh Rajput belonged. Karni Sena had led a violent campaign in 2017 against the film Padmavati, claiming it was anti-Rajput. The film depicted a legend about the Mughal ruler Aurangzeb and the Rajput queen Padmavati. It's not seen as a historical incident by historians, but it's a legend. And the campaign against the film was closely tied to Hindutva politics. And one of the filmmakers targeted as part of that campaign was Sanjay Leela Bhansali, who made the film. But he was also attacked during the Justice for Sushant Singh Rajput campaign. And Sanjay Leela Bhansali was called for questioning by the Mumbai police after Sushant Singh Rajput's death, with which he had nothing to do. I mean, to say he had nothing to do with Sushant Singh Rajput at all in this context, but he was one of the people who was called for questioning. More fan activity, billboards with hashtag Justice for Sushant Singh Rajput were put up in many parts of the US, including New Jersey and Chicago. It seems unlikely that such an expense could have been undertaken by mere fans, and that too of a middle-level star at best. And the speculation cannot help but cross one's mind that US-based BJP-supporting organizations had something to do with it. One of the billboards in Hollywood was soon taken down by the company that put it up, saying they would not be part of a smear campaign against a woman. Evidently, the company had been approached by some people in India who alerted them to the fact that this campaign was very viciously attacking Sushant Singh Rajput's partner. Indications of BJP IT cell involvement in the campaign are evident also from Mumbai Police Cyber Unit, identifying more than 80,000 fake accounts on social media platforms from various countries in Asia and Europe, all started on the day of Rajput's death, seeking to discredit their official investigation. So here's where we must remember the Shiv Sena BJP feud, because Mumbai Police comes under Shiv Sena, and in this case, they were they were obviously being targeted by the Justice for SSR group, so they exposed this. Or take this article celebrating justice for Rajput after the case was taken over by the CBI, from the Mumbai police. This particular story targets Shiv Sena and supports BJP. And all the other, if you look at all the other stories on this site, they take the government line on Amnesty International, which was shut down in India after escalating harassment by the government for alleged financial irregularities, supposed violence by anti-CAA protesters, allegations of corruption against Congress leaders, and so on. So this site, which takes time to discuss the Sushant Singh Rajput episode, is also part of this larger Hindu right-wing, Hindu nationalist ecosystem. The troll army descended on every online article on Hindi cinema, even those not even remotely related to Rajput's death, with thousands of comments abusing nepotism and drugs in the Hindi film industry and urging people to hashtag boycott Bollywood. There is no doubt whatsoever that this is a concerted campaign by the BJP IT cell, and it does not signify a general loss of popularity of the Bombay film industry. I'll return to this soon. It's another matter that the saturation of media spaces with this narrative tapped into a more expansive and nebulous terrain, into existing well springs on all sides of misogyny, casteism, fear of women from other communities controlling their lovers to the detriment of the man's family because his girlfriend was Bengali and Sushant Singh Rajput's family is from Bihar. The generalized trust deficit in institutions like the police, CBI, and ED, with the history of being used as instruments of political vendetta by whichever government is in power. So the campaign taps into existing sort of seams of other kinds of issues in India, but the point is that it was targeted in a particular way. The second element, so the first is this element, that is the so-called fans and the SSR, Justice for SSR army. The second important element is the so-called drug cartel, which is in the Hindutva narrative. Rajput's death has since been ruled as suicide by a 6-member team of forensic doctors of the All India Institute of Medical Sciences. The CBI's investigators also reached the same conclusion. A forensic audit of Rajput's bank accounts did not throw up anything to suggest that his partner could have pushed him to suicide for financial gain. So the case, in effect, there's nothing. It was several months of very, very high power claims and media trials and many film industry people being questioned, detained, etc. But at the end of it, there's nothing. They could not come up with a single thing. But that was not the point. The point, of course, is that it was simply being used as a way of entering the industry and holding people to ransom. Now, interestingly, once the CBI closed the case, it then released a statement which said that it is now focusing on the gamut of reasons that could have led to the actor taking his own life, especially the issue of drug abuse. So the CBI finds nothing except suicide, and then it proceeds to say, but we are going to look into drug abuse as a possible reason for his suicide. This is the CBI's job, to look into why someone committed suicide. So the focus is now on drugs and a so-called drug mafia with which the film industry and specific individuals are supposedly connected. Sushant Singh Rajput's former partner, was granted bail by the Bombay High Court after a month in custody. She was in jail for nothing. Soon after the AIMS report, which said that it was suicide, the All India Institute of Medical Science report, she was released. But she was in jail for a month. In October 2020, the court held that she's not a drug dealer. But the drug mafia angle has been used to drag in for questioning a number of actors, including, of course, A-listers, like, for example, Deepika Padukone, who visited Jawahar Nehru University in Delhi in January 2020 to attend a solidarity meeting called after armed thugs attacked students and faculty on campus. She simply came there. She stood in silence at the meeting behind the Students' Union, which was conducting the meeting. And her silent presence at the meeting made headlines naturally, and she became the target of vicious trolling and calls to boycott her films. After Rajput's death, Padukone was questioned for 5 hours by the Narcotics Bureau, and several other women actors too were questioned for many hours, among them Saif Ali Khan's daughter Sara. The claim of drugs is now evidently going to be the route for a thorough purge of the Bombay film industry. The declaration of an ongoing open investigation is a message being sent out to the Bombay film world. No more returning of awards in protest at government policies, no more statements against lynchings, CA, or rapes and murders of Dalit women. The Hindi film industry has spoken up about all of this, individuals in the industry. But returning of awards there was a concerted campaign. Now, anyone at all can be pulled in for questioning on drug use and drug peddling, and anyone at all can be jailed. The courts will most probably release the arrested eventually, for there may be no case, but they would have been in jail for a month or several months. The process is the punishment, as political activists have learned long ago. While the claims are of international drug traffickers and their links to the Bombay film industry, the actual arrests, as mentioned earlier, have been of people found in possession only of hashish and marijuana in amounts the NCB, that is the Narcotics Bureau, did not disclose to the media. So it was presumably too small to boast of a drug haul. So those who were arrested also were not drug dealers, but people in possession of small amounts of hashish and marijuana. But the threat is enough, and the intimidation seems to have worked on some. Karan Johar, whose only misdeed was working with Pakistani actors, who has otherwise not shown any inclination. He is not one of those who has made any statement or spoken up in any way, but he went out of his way to obsequiously address the Prime Minister on Instagram and so on. But not that everybody is equally intimidated. After he wrote his very obsequious tweet, a young actor from the Malayalam film industry, Parvati Tiruvot, who's also acted in some Hindi films. She's a feminist. She's one of the founders of the Women in Cinema Collective. She responded to Johar's post with a single word sticker, yuck. So it's not that everybody is terrorized, but people are terrorized. Now, the latest victim in the drug campaign is Aryan Khan, Shah Rukh Khan's son, the emperor of Bollywood, who was imprisoned for a month on the charge of possessing drugs in October 21, although none were found on his person. He was then released on bail, and in mid-22, all charges against him were dropped. As Samant Subramanian, who has written on this in the New Yorker, who's written on this campaign recently in the New Yorker, he put it this way: had a government agency really imprisoned Aryan Khan without proof as pure intimidation? Shah Rukh Khan said little during those weeks. The rest of Bollywood, meanwhile, absorbed the news as the most cautionary tale of all. If they could do this to the king, imagine what they could do to us. An interesting sidelight from Samant Subramanian's story in the New Yorker is that during that round of drug raids in October 21, director told him that tax raids had become a weapon, and that when he was raided, investigators noticed that he had been donating small monthly sums to news sites like Scroll and The Wire, which we know are critical of this regime. And the investigators who were supposedly checking on him for drugs and tax evasion told him, don't contribute to these publications. And he said, so I had to stop. We must therefore see the attack on the Bombay film industry as part of the larger concerted move by the RSS to control and purge spaces seen as either controlled by quote-unquote left liberals or as syncretic and unamenable to Hindu-Muslim polarization. The RSS narrative, amplified by the government, police, social media, and pliant television channels and newspapers, links, as we know, urban Nakshals and jihadis, that is leftists and Islamist terrorists, in every such instance. The targeting of the Bombay film industry cannot be understood separately from this larger agenda of the RSS. One of the first indicators, I'm just checking the times. I don't want to over.
That's okay, no problem.
I'll take another maybe 5 to 7 minutes, I think.
10 minutes plus, no problem.
Okay, yeah, 10. I'll be done in 10 minutes. All right, so the targeting of the Bombay film industry cannot be understood separately from this larger agenda of the RSS. One of the first indicators we've come to realized since 2014 are WhatsApp messages that outline bizarre conspiracies. So the WhatsApp messages outline bizarre conspiracies, but they gradually then appear in police reports, government statements, and in the media in all seriousness. One such widely circulated WhatsApp message, difficult to date because it was forwarded so many times, claimed film jihad. As you know, this is the term that's used for everything, UPSC jihad, film jihad, to indicate that the Muslims are taking over India. So the film jihad, whose command was, so this one WhatsApp that was circulating at this time referred to a film jihad uh, where the Bombay film industry was handed over 4 decades ago to, I quote, ideologically cunning thugs and frauds in the mask of the leftists. So that's interesting. Are they saying that leftists are not, that leftists are not cunning thugs and frauds? That's interesting because they're saying that it's in the mask of the leftists. Most of the message targets writers Javed Akhtar and Salim, whose scripts never depicted a Muslim villain. Most of this I'm quoting now, even though police records show that 80% of the criminals in Mumbai are Muslim. Akhtar, the message says, visited Pakistan for decades in the pretext of mushaira, seminars, and conferences. Never spoke against the demonic havoc carried out by Pakistani Muslim goons on minorities, but now they're opposing the CAA and so on. So the message is of this sort, and you can actually see how gradually and how easily these kinds of things then next thing you know enter, as I said, police statements. You hear it being uttered in court. It's really a genuine ecosystem, and there's a plan, there's an agenda. Bombay film royalty, Amir Khan and Shah Rukh Khan, both, Amir Khan was also married at the time, married to Hindu women, have faced the brunt of social media violence for publicly expressing their anxiety as Muslims in the post-2014 India. Amir Khan lost a sponsorship due to social media pressure on the company, and his 2022 film Lal Singh Chaddha faced a massive boycott campaign, boycott Lal Singh Chaddha, and fared badly at the box office. I'll come back to this boycott story at the end, but it did do badly at the box office, and there was a campaign, boycott Lal Singh Chaddha. A.R. Rahman referred to a gang working against him in Bollywood, as a result of which he had not been given work in Hindi films for a long while. While this has been interpreted by many as bolstering the nepotism narrative, it seems unlikely that an Oscar-winning music director would need these kinds of connections. So if he has been marginalized, is it because of his Muslim identity? And who marginalized him? Why did he feel there's a gang working against him? We don't know. Meanwhile, presumably as a counter to Bombay, the BJP government in UP under the current chief minister, Yogi Adityanath, has announced the setting up of a film city in the state, and it is to be called Chalachitrapuram. Kangana Ranaut welcomed this move, citing Akhand Bharat. So the links are phenomenal. So he talks about setting up a film city. She talks about Akhand Bharat. So she said, so it's very clear what the connections are. So she welcomed the move and cited Akhand Bharat, which is a unified larger India of RSS dreams. And she said she looked forward to a terrorism-free film industry. And recently, Akshay Kumar also met him, and they were supposedly had some discussions on the met the chief minister of UP, and they had some discussions on this new film city. Now, I will conclude with a note, or with a little quick discussion on how successful the boycott campaigns have been. It is true that Lal Singh Chaddha was a flop, but Amir Khan has had flops before. Thugs of Hindustan, for instance, was a huge flop. So Lal Singh Chaddha is a remake of Forrest Gump. It got very bad reviews from film critics as well. And it seems to me that the boycott campaign is being given the honor of being taken at its own assessment as having the power to make and break films. Very few films have done well in the theaters post-pandemic. Even films of well-known pro-government stars who have not faced boycott campaigns, such as Kangana Ranaut and Akshay Kumar, both have recently made films which flopped badly. And in fact, when none other than Amitabh Bachchan's film Unchai was released recently towards the end of last year, and this is Amitabh Bachchan, who has not at all spoken up against, and if anything, has shown his agreement with the regime. When his film Unchai was released, he literally on Kaun Banega Karodpati, which is a TV program that he anchors, he literally folded his hands and he begged people to go to the theaters to see the film, because he said he's worried that people are not going to theaters to see films anymore. But it only did moderately well. On the other hand, so you have all these people who are very close to the regime and who have gone out of their way to attack the left liberals and the urban jihadis, etc. Their films have flopped and as well. But on the other hand, Sanjay Leela Bhansali, whom we spoke about, who was questioned, etc., after Sushant Singh Rajput's death, his film Gangubai Kathiawadi, helmed by Alia Bhatt, both of these are targets of Hindutva trolls, was a major hit, second only to the Kashmir Files, which, as we saw, was bolstered. The Kashmir Files' success was bolstered by massive screenings, organized screenings by institutions, mandatory attendance, and so on. We talked about that. Gangubai Kathiawadi had none of that. It was a huge success. It's very difficult to take the Kashmir Files supposed box office success at face value. Then in September last year, Brahmastra was released, starring two Nepo kids, Alia Bhatt and Ranbir Kapoor, and a massive boycott campaign was launched against it. It fared very well at the theatres. There are other factors inhibiting theatre going, which the Bombay film industry should be taking into account. There are two factors that I can outline. One is the end of single screens. There are almost no single screens left, at least in the big cities, and they've been replaced by multiplex theatres, which are really expensive. They are very, very expensive, and way too expensive for the Indians who would have filled theatres earlier. So that shift to multiplex is something that has led to inhibiting theatre going. And second, so that affects a certain kind of audience. That is at the the lower end in terms of wealth. And at the higher end in terms of wealth, there's the comfort of watching a film at home on OTT platforms. And films are being simultaneously released in theaters and on OTT platforms now, a trend that actually Amir Khan decried. And this also leads to, so there are other factors inhibiting theater going. And the boycott, it would be a mistake to take the boycott campaign at its own grandiose evaluation. It's not a mass campaign. It's a BJP IT cell phenomenon. Of course, the Hindutva state's continuous attempts to control more and more sectors cannot be underestimated. But that's another story. And we've already talked about the way in which the film industry is attempted to be controlled. But the boycott campaign, I think it would be a mistake to take it at face value. Now, recently, after the attack, the campaign against Pathan, and now and so on, at the Calcutta Film Festival, Amitabh Bachchan spoke up strongly in favor of the film industry, without referring to anything in particular, but in general, but basically throwing his weight behind his colleagues in the Bombay film industry. Shah Rukh Khan, and he was Shah Rukh Khan. He delivered a memorable line at the end of his talk. He said, "There's a lot of negativity," and this was, to a huge packed stadium, and the applause he got was phenomenal. He said, "There's a lot of negativity, but hum jo log," I don't remember the exact words, but something like this, कि हम जो पॉजिटिविटी में बिलीफ रखते हैं और हम जो पॉजिटिव हैं हम अब भी जिंदा हैं. And the applause he got was tremendous. So it's an ongoing battle for India's soul. And as the iconic line from the Hindi film Om Shanti Om goes, picture abhi baki hai, mere dost. Thank you.
Gee, thank you very much. Such a revealing story. Though much is also known in the media, we keep on hearing all that. but the details were really very revealing. So picture abhi baki hai. For the little part that is left for picture abhi baki hai, we invite Professor Apurvanand to do this concluding remarks. And after that, we will have some questions. Apurva ji.
I think it would be better if we had first questions and as you wish.
आपने आप अपना concluding remark दे दीजिए, and then it will be आपका भी input हो जाएगा ना, तो then people will feel more, if you don't mind. Right?
So shukriya Razi Sahab, and thank you Nivedita for that very elaborate presentation on how Bombay film industry is being targeted and why. I would say that it's also part of the campaign of BJP against all kinds of eminence. So you have to destroy the sense of eminence that exists in society. It's an attack on, so-called attack on elitism, and the elites included the dons of JNU, Delhi University. So their reputation was destroyed in the first phase, and people started saying that we don't want our universities to become like JNU. So that is how the eminence connected with JNU was destroyed. And then was, which Nivedita Menon rightly said, that it's a very significant part of the battle for cultural or for control of cultural area, because Bombay films shape popular or mass sensibilities, and they shape it in many ways, through films, through cinema, but also through actors, because they are seen as public personalities and people relate to them. People related to Dilip Kumar, people related to Wahid Rahman, people related to Raj Kapoor. They wanted to live like them. So they, in a manner of speaking, become idols. People read about them. They don't view their films. They also read about them. They want to know about their lives, and they want to live like them. In this aspect, I would say Bombay film industry has been a challenge for the project of Hindutva. We know its shortcomings, and Nivedita indicated that there have been problems with many movies made by the Bombay film industry. And it's not only recent. Bombay film industry has also been inflicted by this malaise of nationalism, and films have been made even before 2014, celebrating nationalism, which is dangerous, which has been dangerous. But even then, what was Bombay film industry? Let me recall an article, and that was a lead article in the mouth organs of the Rashtriya Swayamsevak Sangh, organizer and Panjanya. That was way back in 2001. I don't know whether Nivedita remembers that or not, or Subhash and others remember that or not, but that was the cover story of Panjanya, or organizer, after the success of the film Kaho Na Pyar Hai, which had Hrithik Roshan. He was, this was his first film. And organizer and Panjanya celebrated the advent of the Hindu response to Khans. That was very significant. That Hrithik Roshan was celebrated as the response to Khan's. Unfortunately, Hrithik Roshan also betrayed them and married a Muslim woman, and later didn't come out to speak in favor of the Hindutva project. And that's a different story. But that is how Bombay Film Industry has been viewed by the RSS, that it is largely dominated by Muslim men, and these Muslim men have huge sexual appeal for Hindu women. So how is it that a Pakistani actor like Fawad Khan appears and Hindu girls and women start falling for him? So this is unacceptable. This is another kind of love jihad. And so you have to, there are two things, in my opinion. I'm not a great movie goer, or I don't watch all movies, but I do follow what is happening in film industry, and how the RSS and BJP and their whole gang is treating this film industry. So the idea was to destroy its reputation, the reputation of major actors of Bombay film industry. None of the major actors ever dared to speak against the Hindutva project explicitly, the way university professors did. They made mild statements, like Amir Khan once said that my wife fears, and Shah Rukh Khan also made a mild statement. But even for that, they faced vicious attacks. And we cannot forget that Amir Khan, who once tried to champion a social cause by attending a fast of Medha Patkar, so his film was not allowed, Fana was not allowed to be screened in Gujarat. It was a voluntary boycott by all cinema houses. They said that there's no order from the government, but we won't screen his film. Before that, Parzania was not allowed to be screened in Gujarat, but that is an old story. So how I see it as part of the project of destruction of all kinds of eminence, which shaped Indian sensibilities, and sensibilities which bound people together in many ways, despite other problems. So Bombay Film Industry did represent that, and that had to be broken. And that was done, as Nivedita explained, in many ways and clever ways. For example, you cannot say that if I am attacking drug cartel, I am destroying your reputation, because drugs are a problem. So after Sushant Singh Rajput, it was the son of Shah Rukh Khan. And it continued, and it did leave an impression in the minds of people that there must have been something wrong with that, even after the investigative agencies accepted that there was nothing, and it was all in a way. His son was framed. It was very clear, but it did have a psychological impact on the people's minds, and it needs to be studied how it has impacted their thinking. And it has, I would say, something to do with people's attitude towards Muslim actors. And that is very cleverly done by not attacking them directly for their being Muslim, but for example, your connection with drug peddling and other things, your lifestyle, which is portrayed as immoral, etc. And it's very easy to do that with film actors. And also this fear, this sexual fear that Hindu men have vis-a-vis Muslim men, that look, here are three Khans, and they have captivated the imagination of Hindu women. How can it be tolerated? And this is how it has continued, and it will continue. What Nivedita said about boycott is right. It's a much more complex thing, and I don't like to comment on that. But I would suggest that we do need a serious study of these campaigns on the minds and psychology of the people at large, what it does to them, and how it is related to the larger frame of mind. The Bombay film industry dominated by Muslims. So how is it that India, which is a land of Hindus, doesn't have a Hindu hero? How is it that? It must be some conspiracy. There must be some nepotism. There must be some internal enemy like Karan Jawahar, Jawahar and others who are collaborators. So there is a seamlessness between attack on universities and Bombay film industry and other elite institutions of India. Everything has to be destroyed. So this destruction is going on. Yes, picture abhi baki hai, and we'll see how it unfolds. But this bulldozer is doing its job. Thank you.
So, yeah, the picture abhi baki hai, but where we are going, we do not know. So before we go to question answer, please let's see the coming Saturday's event. Sarah, quickly show the slide and then we move on to question answer. Sarah?
Ji, can you see it?
Yes. We do every Saturday. Coming Saturday, we do also invite speakers from Pakistan. A lot of diaspora people are here from Indian subcontinent. So Dr. Asim Sajjad Akhtar, who is a very prominent contributor in Dawn, he's going to talk on the politics of fear and desire in Pakistan, how to build a progressive alternative. His one book is becoming quite visible, The Struggle for Hegemony in Pakistan, Fear, Desire, and Revolutionary Horizons. He will be introduced by Dr. Ali Raza from LUMS, and Dr. Syed Irfan Ashraf will be doing the concluding remarks. So take it out, take out the slide, Sarah. Thank you all very much. Now it's the question and answer session. Unfortunately, our moderator for today, Dr. Rafat Hussain, is not present. So I will do my unprofessional job. You can raise your hand, digital hand, and I will call one by one. Or if you are unable to click on the digital hand, just wave your hand. So the first question is from Mumtaz, if that is the name. Please.
Hi. Thank you so much, sir.
Yeah.
So my name is Mumtaz. My question goes to Nivedita and Menon ma'am. And ma'am, thank you so much for such an elaborate and enriching talk. And definitely the attack of Hindutva on Bollywood film industry is huge and enormous, which has done a lot of damage to the pluralism, diversity, and multiculturalism that Bollywood stands for, that Bollywood film industry stands for. But I want to ask you, how do you see the role of Bollywood stars themselves, especially the silence of the Khans, who have often been called as, the spineless stars, who have actually shaped this ecosystem of silence, and now they are facing the brunt. And when they are facing the brunt, it has, created a sort of sensibility and spark among the public. How do you see it?
Well, should I answer each question or should we take a few questions? How do you do it normally? Answer each question as it comes. So Mumtaz, I would not I think it's really a problem if we start putting victims on the same side, or give victims the same weight as perpetrators. So to say the silence of the Khans and they are part of the ecosystem of fear is, it's like saying, why don't women speak up against sexual violence? And because they don't speak up, they're equally responsible. So I'm not concerned so much with whether they have spoken or not. They have, in fact, for Amir Khan to say, as Apurvanand said, for him to say that my wife is wondering, should we leave the country? That's all he said. Shah Rukh Khan has done it in a different way. There's a very interesting story in Caravan with him on the cover in the latest Caravan, which talks about his silent rebellion. I think there are ways in which they have, in a sense, spoken. But in any case, I'm not interested in whether they have spoken or not. I'm interested in the attack on the Bombay film industry. And I don't hold the silence of that they didn't speak up against Hindutva as responsible for the attack on them. Not at all. If the little that they've spoken has only added to the attack. So I wouldn't, I think we should focus on what we need to be fighting. And that's certainly not the victims of Hindutva.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you so much.
All right, the next question is from Rudrangshu Singh. Please be brief, Rudrangshu.
My question is to Nivedita, madam, and I would like to ask about the Me Too campaign that came up and it died down. Was it orchestrated or was there something real about it?
In the Bombay film industry? Was there a Me Too
Yes.
campaign in the Bombay film industry? You're
Yes.
talking about that?
Yes,
Uh,
actor
yeah.
Alok Nath was blamed and lots of
No, it was
sexual
not
harassment.
orchestrated. No, it was not orchestrated. I don't think it was orchestrated. I think there were genuine complaints.
But then how did they die down? Do you find any Hindutva angle into that? Or
No, not at all. No, it's not. It's not relevant at all to the topic of today. There's no Hindutva angle at all there. I don't see any.
The next question is from Aisha M. Rashid. Aisha, please.
Hello, sir. Good evening to everyone. This question is for definitely the speaker for today's event, Professor Nivedita Menon. I was just thinking that there were 2 points I had in mind, and I would like to have your response to them. One is, I think that there is a global phenomenon of anti-intellectualism in the world. And people look down upon intellectuals and leftist intellectuals. And that also has reached India. And it was definitely making an impact here. And we can see the result gradually. It's impacting all spheres of life, and especially the aspect of cultural production, including Bollywood, if I can use the term Bollywood. The other point I had is Bollywood, Indian film industry, the script that we have there usually use Urdu words, which are derived from Persian and Arabic. So how far do you think the fact that Urdu Persian words are incorporated in dialogues, they first of all glorify Urdu sounds. मेरी खुद ही मादरी ज़बान Urdu है, let me declare that. But how far do the dialogues or the script glorify Urdu origin or Urdu words, that is lexical items which are preferred? And the songs are also written like that. They incorporate a lot of Urdu words, against which there is, you must have seen a lot of what to say, campaign going on Twitter and other social media platforms. Boycott Bollywood.
Aisha, please be brief. You cannot just make long commentaries.
Yeah. So can it be not related? Do you think it is not related with the fact that culturally people may not be able to associate with Hollywood Bollywood movies due to this?
So, to answer your I agree that there's a general trend towards anti-intellectualism in the world. That I agree with you. The second point that you're raising about the use of Urdu, so there are two things I want to say here. One is that there is an old campaign starting with the anti-imperialist struggle against the British. At that time, Hindustan was part of. There was a politics of separating out a Sanskritized Hindi, creating a Sanskritized Hindi from a much more mixed language, etc., which we call Hindustani. And so that is part of the Hindu rights campaign for a very long time, uh, going back to the anti-imperialist struggle. But the second part of it is, I don't know where you moved into. How did you imagine that people don't relate to songs of the Bombay film industry because there are Urdu words? They're not thought of as Urdu words. This is Hindustani. This is the language we speak. For many of us who speak Hindi, it's not my mother tongue. I live in the north, and so Hindi is really the language. But when I say Hindi, I'm talking about Hindustani, which has a lot of Urdu words in it quite naturally. So and the kind of songs that people love have all these words, and these songs are sung and enjoyed. And so I think when you connect the Hindutva project so unproblematically to supposedly some kind of mass acceptance, you're wrong. There's absolutely no disconnect between the Bombay film industry and its audience on the question of the language that it uses. In fact, there's an interesting film in which Hrithik Roshan, whom Purvanand talked about, there's a running funny thread in it that he wants to learn Urdu and he keeps making mistakes. So he learns Urdu and then he speaks it, but he uses the wrong words because he's so eager to learn Urdu. So there is a way. Pakistani serials have been incredibly popular. Fawad Khan, Apurvanand mentioned. Pakistani serials are still showing on Netflix, and old Zindagi Gulzar Hai and so on are being watched. And those are in Urdu, not in Hindustani. So I think you're making a connection which cannot be made between the Hindutva campaign, which has, and when you see it on Twitter, don't imagine these are ordinary people. These are campaigns. And many of them are bots, 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 bots. So I don't agree with you at all that I don't know on what basis you think that Indian people don't relate to it. The Hindutva campaign doesn't relate to the language, but that is the language that is spoken. Nobody speaks the Sanskritized Hindu, Chalachitra Puram, or whatever they're going to call it. People just say cinema, picture. So that's the way we speak, and it includes a lot of Urdu words in the north. So I wouldn't make that connection.
All right. Next question comes from Mr. Qaisar Naqvi. Qaisar sir.
Ji. My question, Ms. Menon, first of all, I must thank you for a very, very educative, very excellent talk that you gave. We really enjoyed. The other thing is, and my question is basically, that this attack of Hindutva or whatever on the Bombay film industry and all these things, whatever we talked about, do you think it is an outcome of the globalization? Or, I mean, because filmmaking and all is all the commercial venture. But do you think globalization has affected all these things in our life? Please.
I'm not sure I understand your question. Has globalization affected what exactly?
Has globalization resulted these what we are seeing in the attack on culture and this kind of film?
I don't think so. I mean, globalization has resulted in a particular kind of Bombay film, which is targeting an NRI audience. And that Karan Johar is famous for films like that. So globalization and the attempt to get a global market has led to even things like remaking Forrest Gump or remaking Archie. The series Archie is being remade in India, the Archie comic series. So this is being made as a film. But so we can see the effect of globalization on the Bombay film industry in other ways, in positive and negative ways. The positive ways are, it's actually interesting the way in which music has changed, etc. But I certainly don't think globalization is the result, is the reason for Hindutva. So I don't think it is.
Okay, thank you.
Well, since I don't see many hands or any hand right now, so I'll ask some of them to make either comments or ask question. Salman Qureshi Saab and Ravi Sinha Saab, be in line. Salman Qureshi Saab.
Thank you so much. I, in fact, did have a question which both, I think, Apurvanand and Nivedita could answer. And I like the way in which Professor Apurvanand framed it as a fight against elitism. And in this case, or in which case, the fight against, for example, the Ganga Jamni Tehzeeb, which is also in a sense regarded as an elitist phenomena or an elitist practice. So how do you see if this is a fight against or a struggle or a campaign against elitism, isn't it also likely to succeed as much as it has in the cultural sphere, where you have, a general campaign against the Ganga Jamni Tehzeeb in the mixed syncretic culture, so to speak? Thank you.
Apurvanand, perhaps maybe you would like to address this?
No, please go ahead.
No, because I thought because of the point about elitism was made by you. So, I mean, I'll say something about it,
Yeah,
but
please,
I do.
please.
Yeah, so
Let us think.
I agree with Purvanand that it's a fight against eminence. That I agree with, and the idea is to pull down anything that has acquired any kind of stature in the world and supposedly, presumably, replace it with something else. But I'm not sure it's a fight against elitism so much as a fight to capture spaces that they think the so-called left liberal elite has captured. So it's not a fight against elitism, it's a fight to replace one set of elites by another set of elites. So I would say it's that, although it's presented as a fight against elitism, that's not, they feel, that is the Hindu right feels, that they should be where the left liberals have been, which is supposedly some space of eminence that they see. So that's how I would see it, but maybe Apurvanand could say a bit more about what he meant.
You are right, Nivedita, but elitism, when I use the word elitism, it was under inverted commas. So one understands when they said that Narendra Modi is an outsider to Lutyens' Delhi. And many of the members of Lutyens' Delhi Club also in a way of self-denigration, they said that yes, and so Narendra Modi is welcome and we are entitled brats and it needs to be destroyed for the sake of democracy. So the democratic argument is invoked to destroy, as I said, all notions of eminence. So there is no eminence. Scholars are not important because they are scholars. Hard work is important and Harvard is not important. That is what the Prime Minister had said in 2013 when he said that hard work is more important than Harvard. So it needs to be understood how a subaltern anger in Hindus is being aroused to destroy everything that you have achieved as quote unquote culture. So this culture has to be destroyed. Now it's very interesting that academic spaces are seen as being hegemonized by left liberals, and to a certain extent it's right, but also about Bombay Film Industry. We have been criticizing films made by Bombay Film Industry for last 30, 40 years. But even then, people believe that they have been captured and dominated by left liberals, which is a lie. But this lie is believed by people, and therefore, this project of destruction of Bombay Film Industry is welcomed by this subaltern mass. Now, this subaltern mass is represented by likes of Vivek Agnihotri and others, or Kangana Ranaut, who present themselves as outsiders and people from Kasbas. And I would go back to Aisha's question. I see very interesting change coming in the language of scripting of Hindi films. It's moving away from Urdu. If you look at the dialogues, if you look at the script that is being written, it's now moving away from Urdu. And it's very interesting that the primacy that Urdu had in Bombay Film Industry is now not only being challenged, but in a way, Urdu is getting decimated. So all these things are linked, and it requires a longer and deeper study and discussion.
Ravi Saab, just a second. There is a hand raised, so let me just address to that. Shrikant Chopra ji.
Yes, hello, can you hear me?
Yes, please be brief.
Okay, very nice presentation. I come to the lecture with an unbiased and neutral mind. My question was the presentation that Dr. Menon made. I didn't find anything definite which was real. It's all, you talked about social media, you talked about article, you talked about a lot of anti-government media, but what's the substance? Okay, is there conspiracy you can prove or we can prove? Is there something definitely proven legally or not? Because my question is Hindutva doing something illegal, immoral, or unethical? The big difference in all three things. So I couldn't get that distinction. If you're making it at all, I'm not sure. The second question I have is, Constitution gives you the liberty to express, to make films, but does not give you the guarantee that you're going to make money. Okay, you are allowed to fail, you're allowed to succeed. So the idea that Hindutva is criticizing industry, is it illegal, immoral, as unethical? And what can we do about it? Is a fight of ideas, or is more than that? How can we fight it? How can we make it disappear or be moderated? No, that's my question.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. So, so your first question is, what is my proof? That this is a Hindutva agenda. So when I see that the CBI so I see the CBI arrest someone who's not in possession of drugs. He's the son of I'm just using one example here. In fact, my paper was full of instances and full of proofs, but perhaps they were not able to convince you. But the fact is that when I see that a young boy is arrested who the police themselves said he was not in possession of drugs at the time, he's arrested and kept in jail for a month and he's released completely free. So is Sushant Singh Rajput's partner Riya Chakravarti, released completely free. Something is happening with these enforcement agencies. Tax raids are being used as weapons. Someone is told not to it's a tax raid. They find nothing wrong, but they tell him don't contribute to Scroll and Wire. So I think if you're a social scientist or if you're a student of society, these are sufficient to make perfectly valid arrive at perfectly valid conclusions. So I'm not quite sure what you mean by proof, but when you see that 80,000, when the Bombay police says that 80,000 fake accounts were opened from different parts of the world on the day of day after Sushant Singh Rajput suicide, to me, that is a clear indicator that there's a campaign. So I'm not quite sure what kind of proof you're looking for, but this is sufficient in my opinion. And how can we, so is it immoral, ethical, unethical, etc.? Yes, it is unconstitutional. And it is therefore failing the principles of ethicality set by the constitution, Hindutva politics, which is Hindu supremacism in a country in which there are multiple kinds of communities. To insist on Hindu supremacism is constitutionally invalid. It is constitutionally unethical, constitutionally immoral, and constitutionally illegal. I hope that answers your question.
All right, so let's move on. I invite Ravi Sinha sir, Professor Ravi Sinha, to either raise a brief question or a very brief comment. Ji. Ravi sir. Ravi sir, please unmute yourself.
सॉरी रजी साहब, मैं आज मेरा नेट जो है वो प्रॉब्लम कर रहा है।
सेकंड डिवाइस को बंद कर दें।
Can you hear me?
Yes, but
you have two devices on.
You have two devices on, so
I don't know that today there is a problem, and also thank you for inviting me. I have nothing really to say. I am completely dealing from films and Bombay films, especially after 70s. And I'm really impressed by the kind of, it is a surprise to me that a scholar of Nivedita stature has paid so much attention to what is happening to Bombay film industry today. So I know you invite me usually to make a comment. I have nothing fruitful to say today because I am completely out of my depth about this subject. I got dealing from, when I used to watch the kind of films occasionally I watch were made in 50s and 60s, maybe sometime in 70s, after that I haven't watched. And since I have to say something, I would like Nivedita and also Apurvanand to speculate about if those kinds of films were being made today, what will be the reaction of this regime, because this RSS family, because now they have to look for Muslim actors and Khans and such things to attack and to generate some passion among what Apurvanand said, subaltern masses. But there is, as far as content of the films are, I don't watch films, so I don't know the content of the films, the way they were made in 50s and 60s and partly 70s. Those kinds of films are not made. Would they speculate about if Bimal Rai was around, if Khwaja Ahmad Abbas was around, if Raj Kapoor was around and making that kind of film? Of course, Raj Kapoor made other kinds of films too. Will they be allowed to make, or what kind of, will there be some content kind of attack on Bombay film industry rather than these actors and personalities kind of attack?
So Apurvanand, I'll just go first a little bit. One is that I'm not sure exactly how Apurvanand was using the term subaltern anger, but I don't actually believe that subaltern masses are angered or are being able to be mobilized by Hindutva politics. I tend to hold the opinion that there is a certain kind of invocation of the subaltern, but as Apurvanand himself pointed out, those who articulate it and the other kind of elites, it's Kangana Ranaut or people like that who articulate that position, and the subaltern masses still enjoy Hindi cinema. You will find, for example, the song from Pathan, which is being attacked because Deepika Padukone wears an orange rust-colored bikini, which they're calling saffron. It's obviously an attack on Deepika Padukone because she took a stand, because she went to JNU, she stood behind the Students' Union. So, so it's not as if subalterns are up. And that particular song is everywhere. Everyone is listening to that song, and it's a huge hit, the song already. So, so I don't think that subaltern masses are being actually. These are trained. These are the people who actually shout slogans in film theaters, etc., are activists. They're not. So that's one point I want to make. The second point I want to make about the content of the films, any kind of, I mean, the kind of films you're thinking of, Ravi, which you would have watched, and in the films of the 50s and 60s, and where you have रहने को घर नहीं, सारा जहां हमारा, that kind of a film with that kind of lyric would definitely be seen as anti-national, and would definitely be seen as projecting India in a poor light and so on. So there's that. That's a quick answer to your other question. And about Urdu, I just want to come back to the Urdu Hindi thing. There has been a shift away from Urdu, but towards more Bombaya Hindi. Actually, there was a film called Vivah, I remember, and this was long ago, long before this kind of before this regime came into power. There has been an attempt, or films of Sunny Deol would use very Sanskritized Hindi. But the shift in cinema is actually towards very local kinds of Hindi, either Bombaya Hindi, or if it's based in the UP Badlands and UP gangsters, then that kind of Eastern UP kind of Hindi. So there's actually something very interesting also happening in Hindi cinema. And as far as content is concerned, they are citing the particular song and the supposed obscenity of Pathan. But as has been pointed out, Vivek Agnihotri himself has made films of that nature before. And he is being equally sort of challenged on social media. So this is a very elite campaign. It's not at all a subaltern campaign.
तो मैंने ये वाले पैड लगाए, तुमको सिर्फ मैं दिखाना चाहता हूँ.
Gee, so Subhash Gatke ji, are you?
Yeah, thank you, Nivedita and Puranan, for the excellent presentation they made. When I was listening to Nivedita, I just read. I remember Kaveri Bamejai has written a book on the three Khans, and I haven't read the book, but I was reading a review of that book on the three Khans, and I was just thinking that the manner in which the three Khans started their career in '86. So there have been two fields in India, cricket and Bollywood, where these people, quote-unquote Muslims, have been more visible. But the another troubling aspect of the film industry, the content part. I was told that films are recently, some film came in which the whole love jihad angle has been put. So that aspect is also coming in the films. So the situation will be very bad in the people. I don't have any question, but I just want a small comment on the whole thing. The content part is also getting smartly destroyed. The whole Hindu-Muslim angle is being put. Thank you. Thank you.
All right. So next in line that I will invite is our Professor Nazir Ahmed, a very senior person from California. Professor Nazir Ahmed.
Assalamu alaikum. I would like to invite a comment from our learned professors, Professor Menon and Professor Anand, about the influence of technology, the transformative role of technology in the unfolding dialectic between the ideology and business. You know, the way content is distributed in the world is changing. We have, on the one hand, the content creators. The Khans are great because they are great. They are great artists. And in terms of the consumers, the audience is not just the Indian audience for cinema, Indian cinema. It's a global audience. We watch it here. The Nigerians watch it. When I was in North Africa, they watch it. So technology, specifically, if I may mention DLT, that's the distributed ledger technology, AI, blockchain technology, have the means of connecting the creators of art with the consumers of art. In your opinion, sir and ma'am, does that hold a possibility of somehow obviating, going around this onslaught we have from ideology, whether it be Hindu or Muslim or whatever, and the stranglehold of money?
Apurvanand, would you like to say something?
I'm not thought about it, so I would refrain from responding to this question.
Okay. My response is brief. I'll just say that, of course, technology transforms the ways in which we consume media, and the very development of certain kinds of media is an aspect of technology, for example, social media. But I don't believe that any kind of technological change is the way in which, or that it can substantively address politics. We can use technology in our political activity, but I don't think that changes in technology will enable us to fight this kind of politics.
So perhaps there are no more questions, no more comments. I'll just, I raise a question myself. I mean, we are observers from sitting here in Washington, DC, elsewhere in America or UK, and watching the Indian scenario. I don't understand this aspect that Hindutva's project may be successful in getting short-term successes in at elections, but outside of India, it is the first time that India has gotten a very bad image in the West. India earlier was considered as a unique experiment, chaotic, maybe corrupt, this and that, but never seen in this bad image. Every single day in any major newspaper of the West covers India only in the bad image. And that's, don't the Hindutva guys understand that if India has to rise, as it says that it has the potential, and it has the potential, so it cannot sustain this kind of experiment for very long. What to crush 200 million people who have among themselves a lot of potential? I mean, how can you crush your own population, 200 million, and still want to compete with the world powers and world societies? How can you do this thing? I mean, are they really nuts in that? I mean, they don't understand this, and they are so well connected with their businesses, with other things in the Middle East, the Muslim lands. How? And look at this reaction. Lately, even Bharat Jodo Yatra, the same Congress, who was almost looked like it was diminishing, has come on the street, and whatever crowd you see, it is a remarkable crowd. So are those Hindus, they are mostly Hindus, they are showing their anger, their frustration that it is not us. We are not like what the RSS is showing to other things, that everyone is angry, everyone is anti-Muslim. They don't seem to be anti-Muslim. So where we are going? I mean, this is.
Well, I think we'll have to take this as a comment rather than a question.
There's no question.
I agree with you. There's no question. I agree.
So
I think it's a nice note on which to end the event.
So what is the life of this experiment? What is
you said that why don't they understand that it's destroying the reputation of India, and India won't rise if these divisions continue. But I have a very simple answer. Gundas don't want their population to flourish. They want to control. It's not about governance, it's about control. That is what RSS is all about. That is what BJP is all about. So we ask wrong question. The question that we are asking are question that you ask people who are concerned with governance or government. But here is a formation, Rashtriya Swayamsevak Sangh or Bharatiya Janata Party, whose only aim is to control.
Control where? I mean, look in the south.
Control everything. See, in Indian parlance, what does a dada of a gully do? He doesn't work to improve municipal facilities. He controls the people of the gully, of the lane. That is what it is all about. We try to complicate things. It's not that complicated. It's to control you, is to dictate you, is to get pleasure out of that. That we need to understand. So we keep wondering what will happen to India. They're simply not concerned about that. They're not concerned about India rising to greater heights, etc.
Yeah, but you see, a lot of Indians, us here, most of them are very well off, very well educated. They really feel frustrated when they see that we are the, I guess, second largest pool of university graduates, professionals in the world because of our population in India. So many university goers and all those. But the contribution in innovation, in science, in arts, in any aspect of human endeavor is so zero that it, even in sports, is so zero. We can't face here actually when they ask, there is nothing really to respond.
Razi Sahab, can I come in for a minute? Hello?
Yeah.
Razi Sahab?
Sure.
Now we are talking. Apurvanand made a very good point, and I would like him to extend it a little bit. Yes, these people are about control. What do you, Apurvanand, think about why is a large part of Indian population so willing to be controlled?
Yeah, that is true. That is the problem. Also, bigger problem is that how come this population, they don't understand, they are so willing to be controlled. Your agencies are so willing to be controlled. Any